Forest Rhoccus, Kalenkin, and Titanus. These three genera are probably the most famous examples of a family known as Forest Rockidae, but you probably know them best as the terror birds, a fitting name for birds that would have been absolutely terrifying in life. These guys inhabited what is today North and South America. Forest Rhoccus was found in South America. It lived during the Miocene and went extinct about 13 million years ago. Palanquin also lived in South America during the Miocene about 15 million years ago, and Titanus actually inhabited what is now North America. It seemingly came over during what is known as the Great American Interchange, which is the point in time when North and South America became connected, like how they are now, which is something that allowed a lot of different creatures to cross over to the other continent. And Titanus is also the more recent of the three, going extinct only about 2 million years ago. These three were carnivorous birds that towered over most of what they would call food. While different in size and basic beak shape, this trio shares many traits, such as long, powerful legs with devastating claws and a hooked beak, which is not unlike the hooked beaks found on modern-day birds of prey. They are truly icons of prehistory, icons that have shown up in a lot of different projects over the years. I know that the poll only had one genus, that being Forest Rhoccus, but many of you had requested that I include these other genera, and I agree. I mean, they all do belong to the same family, so they are all closely related to each other, and by including them all, we can kind of make this into a larger terror bird tribute of a video. So yeah, welcome to the many interpretations of terror birds. Of course, the poll did say Forest Rhoccus specifically, as I alluded to before in that intro, but including them certainly was, I think, a good choice. A lot of you had requested that I do that, and by doing so, we do, of course, make the video longer because there aren't too many Forest Rhoccus depictions out there, but it also makes a little bit of a celebration, or I guess tribute, whatever, or just something that helps us look at different terror birds, because, you know, a lot of times in media, they often just call them terror bird without specifying which specific genus we're looking at, which is a little bit annoying. So I'm kind of rambling anyways, so I don't know. Before we get started, I actually have a little bit of an announcement. If you want to skip this announcement, that's completely fine. The timestamps are below. You know that you can start there. Yeah, you can skip forwarding into the video. But I have officially started a Patreon. This will be one of the best ways to help support the channel and my other social media channels as well. I am slowly trying to make it so that I can prioritize content creation a little bit more and try to make better videos overall, just higher quality, offering more information and stuff like that, and to continue to fuel my mission to spread prehistory knowledge everywhere across the internet, or something like that. I don't know. You can find it at patreon.com/dinoguy. You know, the link will be in the description if that's something you want to do, is, you know, help support the channel. I offer a few different tiers that offer a lot of really cool perks that will influence the way that some videos are made and things like that. And just, you know, it's just like a really fun way. It's just a great way to support the channel. On top of that, thank you so much to Philip Fico for being my first ever subscriber who joined a tier. He joined at the Spinosaurus tier, and one of the benefits of the Spinosaurus tier is that you get your name in the credits. I wanted to mention him outright because he is the first one to actually subscribe. So thank you so much. You know, your support means everything. So yeah, again, just thank you. So for those of you who have skipped, and for those of you who have stayed behind, let's go ahead and talk some terror birds. Let's get right into this. So of course, I will be separating these guys into different sections. We'll do the Forest Rhoccus first, and then we'll move on to Kalenkin and then Titanus. And yeah, we'll look at their own different media depictions separately from there. So with Forest Rhoccus, its first appearance was in Mysterious Island as a stop motion creation. I always love stop motion creations. I think they're always so cool. They're like time capsules for the time in which they were released. My hat is crooked. And this one in particular was done by Ray Harryhausen. My hat's bugging me now. This one in particular was done by Ray Harryhausen, who, of course, is a legend when it comes to stop motion. So I think that's really cool. And I quite like the way that he looks. Look at this fella. It actually looks pretty dang good as a terror bird. Some things for terror birds is that they have this overall huge build, I guess, very bird-like build because they are birds. Covered in feathers, they had these small wings, a hooked beak, and, or at least the three species that we're looking at had a hooked beak, and massive legs with huge claws. And this Forest Rhoccus pretty much has all of that. It looks really good. The colors are also really cool. I like how bright its head is in contrast with the rest of its body. You have some reds and yellows going on with these really red eyes, a black beak, and yeah, no, this is just an awesome start, if you ask me. Next up, there is the Lost World. According to this, the original pilot, it shows up as some sketches in a book, and it looks pretty good here too. A little bit thicker in general. It kind of looks like this fella has theropod dinosaur arms, like non-avian theropod dinosaurs. Hi, how are you? So I'm currently editing this video, and now that I'm looking at the image way closer, it doesn't really look like it does have non-avian dinosaur theropod arms. So completely disregard that portion. I don't think it had those in this specific design. We will have some that do have those, just you wait. But yeah, disregard that portion, but I'm going to leave in what I say next because it's still some good information. So good. Because of course, terror birds are dinosaurs because they're birds. I should probably kind of clarify a little bit more for those of you who don't know. Birds are a part of the Dinosauria clade. The birds first showed up towards the late Jurassic period. And they of course evolved from, some theropod dinosaurs. They branched off from something like that. But of course, that still means that they qualify as dinosaurs today. They're simply just another group of theropod dinosaurs, typically known as avian dinosaurs. So that includes terror birds. Terror birds are dinosaurs. They're kind of a great example of how dinosaurs held on to some power, I guess, after they went extinct 66 million years ago. If that's the way that you want to look at it, of course. It's just a fun way to view things. But these designs are pretty cool, for how small they are in the grand scheme of things. I think they're pretty good. Next up, we have Walking with Beasts. This one looks really good. I really quite like this one. The colors are a huge standout for me. You got like basically a base of white with some brown colors in there. The feathers on top of the head look really cool, and the more orange beak I think looks fantastic as well. They are shown to be like kind of like playing second fiddle to Smilodon. Basically, the whole narrative that once Smilodon showed up, they kind of took like dethroned the terror birds that lived in South America, of course. Now, here's one of the biggest things. By the time that this episode takes place, this specific terror bird, Forest raucus, was extinct. It did not interact with Smilodon, which this would be Smilodon populator. Most terror bird species did not. The only one that we really know of that did was Titanus, and we'll talk about Titanus a little bit more, but it only lived alongside the smallest species known as Smilodon gracilis. The Smilodons in this episode are, again, Smilodon populator, which is the largest species. Little interesting thing, because you very frequently see terror bird alongside Smilodon, but really that was likely a rare occurrence, which is interesting. But yeah, I really do like their designs. It seems like they have some claws on their wings, which I don't think that was something that was present. In fact, I think it was something that was debunked per se. I'm not too sure. If I'm incorrect about that, then I apologize. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I don't believe they had something like that. Everything else looks fantastic, though. Moving on to Prehistoric Park, they also showcase it alongside Smilodon populator. But that aside, everything looks fantastic. This was my introduction to this specific species of terror bird. And it's a great introduction, if you ask me. Has a really cool yellow coloration, contrasted with some kind of like reddish browns and black stripes that go all the way up to the animal's eye, and just looks really cool. Just looks really cool, kind of like really metally, And again, some awesome feathers that go up towards the back on the animal's head. Beak looks great. It's got that hook on it. The wings look really good too. It's got the long, large legs, essentially. Everything about it, I think, looks fantastic, and I'm obviously nostalgic for it too, but I think it's good. I think it's really good. Life on our planet. Now, I have been on the record of saying that I really do like the terror bird designs in this show, and that does apply to the Forest raucus as well. The colors are really cool. You got some kind of black colors with some purple on the back of its head and some red around its eye. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I quite like. The hook on the beak is really pronounced, and I think it looks fantastic. And the animation, I think, is really good too. The quality of the CGI looks great. Those feathers look really good, which I know feathers are something that's a little bit harder to animate, or at least like make a CGI model for, at least to make them look convincing. And this looks really good. So really no complaints on this one. I think it looks fantastic. It could be possible that we see a raised claw on this guy. So a little fun fact about terror birds is that there's a good possibility that their innermost toe rather, had a claw that was raised off of the ground, very similar to the Seriema, which is I believe the closest modern relative of terror bird. Their innermost toe is raised off the ground, and the reason why they do that is because their claws, they defend that claw from being damaged. That way they don't damage it while running or walking, because that claw is very important for them, because they use it to kick or to pin down their prey and stuff like that. It's very likely that Terror birds would have done a similar thing. At least some of them would have, where their innermost claw was raised off the ground, and they would use it to kick, and that would have probably been very devastating because those were pretty big claws. Or use them to use them to pin down their prey while their hooked beak goes in to tear into it, which is also really quite terrifying. I think that's something that is present on life on our planet. At least at the very least, I think I noticed it on the later terror birds that we'll be talking about, or at least earlier in terms of when it was shown in the episodes. But I can't really see it on Forest Raucus, but there is a chance that it is present, which is really cool because not a lot of these we will see it. Although I don't know if it's necessarily something that's confirmed. Like if terror birds had them, we have recently found a trackway of terror bird footprints that where like the it only has two toes in the ground, which means that the innermost toe would have been raised up to defend that claw. So that does imply that they would have had something like that, which is a very cool discovery, of course. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on from that. In Jurassic Park Builder, we have one that kind of looks like a kiwi to me. At the very least, the body looks like a kiwi, which is an interesting combination because it's got like the body of a kiwi, the head of a Forest Raucus. The head looks really good, but I think that that kind of fits the style that Jurassic Park Builder typically had, which are these animals kind of like stubby eyes in their stubby form. They're I don't know, they're just more stubby proportions, and I think they're really fun. Yeah, that's the extent of my thoughts. That it just looks like a kiwi mixed in with a terror bird. It starts off with a pretty basic color, and then as you level it up, it gets to have some more brighter, like bluish colors. Very interesting, very interesting overall. Now here's Jurassic World: The Games, Forest Raucus, and it seems to be pretty consistent with most other depictions that we've seen. The colors on this one in particular are really cool, and of course, the more you level it up, the more feathers, the more crazy feathers and things like that it gets. But it looks pretty good. It kind of looks a little bit reminiscent of the Walking with Beasts Forest Raucus, which is always really cool. But yeah, not much else I could say. It looks pretty darn good for the animal that it represents. So awesome job on that part. And the Jurassic World Alive one looks even more like the the Walking with Beasts Forest Raucus, down to the colors basically that look really reminiscent to the colors that we saw in that documentary, and those type of feathers that are on top of the animal's head. The wings look really good. I really like the overall shape of the animal, and yeah, it captures Forest Raucus very well. We're on a pretty decent streak with something like Forest Raucus. Then we'll move on to our next terror bird, known as Kalankin. Kalankin is often seen with having a kind of like thinner beak overall compared to something like Forest Raucus. And our first depiction certainly does have that. From prehistoric predators, this Kalankin does have a thinner beak. The hook is still present, which that checks out. Legs are huge and powerful. It got these small wings, and the feathers look pretty good overall. So not much else I can say about this one, but it does seem to have the basic idea of Kalankin down. And it seems like so far we've really not we've had some pretty good designs so far. We haven't really had any that veered off of the beaten path. Until now, this one, I came across this one. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it's from, but it's titled Gon's Cartoon, and it has this guy. The head looks kind of like a regular bird, I suppose, like a robin or something like that. But it's got like a blue top of the body, brown bottom of the body, and a kind of like terror bird shape, I guess, like the basic terror bird shape. It's one of the most unique designs that we've seen. So that one's interesting. In Jurassic Park Builder, it does look distinct from Forest Raucus, which is really good, and it looks quite cool. The more you level it up, you get colors that look like this, kind of like some reddish colors mixed in with black colors. Looks fantastic. The beak is thinner, still has the hook. Huge, powerful legs. You know, they are bipedal birds, of course. All birds are bipedal. And that those feathers that kinda stick up on the head, which is something that I'm finding is very, very common. I might have already said that, but yeah, that's, and they're just a little bit more stubby compared to most other designs that we've seen, but they look really good. I quite like them. In Jurassic World: The Game, I unfortunately don't have it, so I can't talk about it in the game, but from where I'm sitting, these images look really good. Got a thinner beak, checks out. The rest of the body looks like a terror bird body, checks out. The wings, checks out. The legs, checks out. Feathers, checks out. Looks quite like a Kalankin. I think. Maybe the beak is a little bit too thin, but I'm honestly not too sure. A lot of the fossil material that I've seen, it was a pretty thin beak, so we'll just say good. We'll say good. It looks good. We've seen a lot of really good ones so far. The Kalenkin also looks pretty good in this game. I kind of like how it has a little bit of a mohawk going on. It's kind of purple coloration really helps it stand out from or stand apart from the Forest Raucous in this game. And the beak is a different shape overall. Colors look really cool, and it has the basic terror bird shape. So again, just another good one. I haven't had too many drawbacks for most of the designs that we've seen on this list. Very, very interesting. And now we have the Primordial Tyrants Path of Titans mod. You already know what I'm going to say. This is just really good. I really do love the mods that you get in Path of Titans, and everything looks great. The whole just shape of the animal looks fantastic. It's got those huge, powerful legs, and we might as well note those talons that it has. The innermost claw on each foot, those are raised up, which that could be a possibility for the animal, and I love to see it here. Those sounds are also really cool. I quite like those. You do get some variation with this fella. Add some really cool head ornamentation in terms of like feathers, like yeah, you know that classic head crown that we've seen on a lot of different depictions so far. And some of them change the shape of the beak, make them a little bit longer and thinner and stuff like that. They all look really good. I really do quite like them. The animations look really great. I love how it kind of like ducks down a little bit, goes a little bit more horizontal when it's running around, and then it stops and then it looks around, and like the slight head tilts and everything that it has. Like look at this. Look at that. Just slight little like a bird. Um, and another thing I want to note is like when you jump down something, look at those arms, the way that they go out. It's very cool. I really, really do like it. And the sounds are fantastic. There's this one in particular. You just hear that beak clacking. That's so cool. I'm a huge fan of Primordial Tyrant mods. I think that they really do a great job at just portraying like you know, implementing these mods. They like feel like they're a part of the game to me. So this one is a very good one if you ask me. Then we will move on to the only North American terror bird on this list, or in this grouping, I suppose. And that, of course, is Titanus. Now, Titanus, of course, is the one that was found in North America because eventually North and South America did connect. Now, of course, because a continent like South America was isolated, it saw the rise of a lot of interesting animals, such as the terror birds. They mostly found their origins in South America, and once they finally connected, some of them were able to move on to North America, such as Titanus here, where it would compete with some of the North American animals, such as Smilodon. That's right, Titanus was likely one of the only terror birds that actually interacted with Smilodon. And again, this was the smallest species of Smilodon that we know of, known as Smilodon gracilis. So in the first project that we're looking at, Prehistoric Predators, released in 2007, we see it interacting with Smilodon. Very good, very good, very accurate, you know, very accurate. Now let's talk about the design. The design looks pretty good. It's got an overall thick build. The hooked beak, I like the black on the beak. I think that gives it a really cool appearance. And I like the way that the legs look, you know. Secrets out. I like terror bird legs. I don't know. I don't know. They look pretty cool. They look pretty good too. Um, and I like the way that the feathers look as well. There's something about those feathers that I think look really good as well. I haven't really said too much unique stuff. A lot of these designs are really good. But still, it's just like one of my biggest pet peeves is I remember a lot of these projects that we're looking at only refer to them as the terror bird, which I guess you can look at that as like a common name, I suppose, like a common name for a prehistoric animal. But it's like they're all different genera, you know? It's like this is a terror bird. It's like, okay, what kind of terror bird? I don't know. That's a little bit of a tangent because I was doing some research on this video and watching some of these projects. And like, take for example, on Life on Our Planet, all you hear Morgan Freeman say is, "This is a terror bird."
The terror bird.
It's like, okay, what kind? Anyway, let's move on. 10,000 BC. I adored these. In fact, I still adore these. They're terrifying. I think that they're utilized very well in a horrifying manner, kinda like on par with the Jurassic Park velociraptors. The way that they're used in the tall grass, the fact that when they're moving through that grass, we can't quite see all of them at once as they're slowly like, they're just dragging people off into the grass and just you hear screams and everything, and they're weird, terrifying sounds. Everything about it, I think, is really good. Um that is a scene that has stuck with me ever since I watched this when I was younger. It terrified me when I was younger, and I think it's awesome nowadays. I do believe that this guy is in the wrong place. Of course, Titanus was a North American bird, and this, I believe, was in Europe because I think that's where this tribe came from. I could be wrong though. They do end up in Africa, which is geographically a lot closer to Europe, so I assume they are in Europe, which means that Titanus is across the sea. Did Titanus live in Europe? I don't think it did. Well, I can tell Titanus has only ever been found in like Texas or California and Florida, so I don't think it was in Europe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't find anything. I might be looking in the wrong place, but I'm pretty sure it's never been found in Europe. Anyway, let's continue to talk about the design now. I've been getting off track in this one a lot. I quite like the design too. I think that they might be oversized, which is something that helps exemplify how terrifying this scene is. But they do have the hooked beak. They have that huge terror bird stature with a longer neck. The feathers that seem to be a little bit more sparse. It kind of seems like they end at the base of the neck, and the animal's head is bald, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like the way that they climb the trees to try to get to their prey. Again, just makes them terrifying. That seems to be the main goal of this is to make them terrifying. Like this scene really puts the word terror in terror bird, and they do a very good job at that. So yeah, especially from like the movie standpoint, I do really like these guys, and I think that their design is pretty good overall. Like really not much complaints about it. Um, yeah, we can go ahead and move on. In Monsters Resurrected, wow. In Monsters Resurrected, geez, why can't I speak today? In Monsters Resurrected, we got this fella right here, which is of course Titanus. Looks good. It's got a stubbier neck, which I don't know if they were this short. They could have been. I could be wrong about that. But the hooked beak is present. It seems like it has some blue around the eye, which I think looks really cool. And the feathers look great. It's got small wings, and yeah, I do remember this fella because, of course, I owned Monsters Resurrected on DVD. This is the same one I owned as a kid. I'm surprised it remained intact all these years because I didn't take care of DVDs when I was a wee child, which is something I regret. But yeah, everything's really good. It's unfortunate that we had to see it, eat a dog because they have those in Monsters Resurrected. Each episode had that section of like where it's just kind of like we are lucky, we don't these things went extinct before we came around, and then it shows a freaking scene of a freaking terror bird breaking into a freaking junkyard, eating the guard dogs. It's not cool, man. It's not cool. Let's go ahead and move on because that's not cool. Primeval, New World. I know that, okay, New World has a Titanus, at least. When I type in Primeval New World Titanus, it has this fella. Looks pretty good overall. The colors are really cool. I like how raggedy those feathers are. Kind of looks like it's been through a lot. The beak looks good. I like the red around the head. And the limbs look really good too. There's also this fella right here from, I think the original show. I think it's simply just called a terror bird. So I don't know specifically which one it is. So I'm just putting it with the other terror bird, from Primeval New World. So regardless of what species this is meant to be, like it's likely different from Titanus, but we'll just talk about it here anyway. The beak looks really cool. It's got some yellow on it with some interesting kind of structures on the top of the beak. Something that those terror birds would have lacked. It has a bald head as well, and the colors of the feathers look fantastic. And I actually really like the quality of the CGI as well. It really does put the terror in terror bird. Nah, I already used that one. Can't use it twice. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. They both look really cool. I'm just not too sure about which specific species the other terror bird is. Then we have terror birds from 2016. These guys are interesting. They have non-avian dinosaurs arms, theropod arms. It's a mixture of avian dinosaurs, that being birds, and non-avian dinosaurs, that being dinosaurs that are not birds. Yeah, I assume this is a B movie because of just the quality of the shots and the overall quality of the CGI. They seem to have some sparse feathers. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I don't know if I have too much to say about it, but it is. We'll move on to Life on Our Planet. Of course, this is where I was talking about how Morgan Freeman just mentions that they are terror birds. Of course, that's not Morgan Freeman's fault. That's, those who write the documentary. But look how beautiful these designs are. Now, I think that this is overall just the same design as the Forest Rockus or vice versa. Like the Forest Rockus basically just uses the same model with some tweaks here and there. But I still think it looks fantastic. It looks beautiful. And the lighting in this scene in particular, with that either golden or magic hour, it looks beautiful. It looks really cool. Uh, Again, same things I said about the Forest Rockus, the quality of the feathers, the quality of the CGI, the way that those beaks look, how pronounced that hook on the beak is. The yellow around those beaks also look really cool. And the yellow that kind of accents their feathers on their head looks fantastic. It's also really cool to see their behaviors highlighted in this as they're just kind of like walking alongside each other trying to get this territory. All very cool stuff. And it does end with Smilodon gracilis eating one of them. That's something that kind of does lead back to kind of what I was saying about Prehistoric Park and Walking with Monsters. Now, of course, there is the whole idea that especially when the Great American Interchange happened, the terror birds were outcompeted by mammals, essentially. Mammals like Smilodon that eventually, coexisted with terror birds, and they just eventually were outcompeted. I'm sure that had something to do with it, but it likely wasn't the only reason. And most of the time, documentaries kind of like focus on it like it was the only reason, but there was likely a few different contributing factors that led to the extinction of terror birds. But yeah, again, just very amazing design, but we'll go ahead and move on from that. In Fossil Fighters, this Titanus is certainly something. Once again, it does have the kind of like non-avian theropod dinosaur arms with feathers on it, which is, cool. It does have that beak with the hook on it and kind of like ostrich-like colors, which is really interesting. Fossil Fighters is an incredibly stylized game, and it looks pretty cool in that style. I think it really quite stands out. And now in Carnivores, I quite like this. Whoa, sorry, but I quite like this fella. The animations are actually really cool. I quite like the way that he moves, the way he stops to get that itch that's bugging him. Very good. I like how bright yellow that beak is. The hook is present. It seems like those feathers on the back of the head are just something that are common, and I probably shouldn't have brought it up as much as I did, but hey, it's fine. Legs are huge and powerful, and it's another good example of the animal, so really good job on that part, I don't think you can hear it, but very cool regardless. And then finally, we have Ark Survival Evolved. I'm not too sure which terror bird this is, so I'm putting it at the very end. Looks really cool, though. Very stylized for the game. Probably one of my favorite designs in the game, for that Ark style. I just don't know what it is. On the dossier, it says it's Forest Rockidae, which is the family of, it's the family of Forest Rockidae, so that's interesting. But no, it looks really cool. It looks like it has some kind of like a jagged beak going on. The feathers look awesome, and it kind of looks like only its neck is bald from feathers. The head has feathers, and the body has feathers. Just something I figured I'd point out. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's about it. Unless Ice Age did Ice Age have a terror bird? I feel like it did, or was that just a Gastornis? It did have a large flightless bird, but it had Diatrema. Is Diatrema a forest rocket? I'm not too sure if it was. Hold on a second. Oh, it seems like the family of Diatrema is actually synonymous with Gastornis, and Gastornis is not a terror bird, so we're in the clear with that one. Many interpretations of Gastornis, possibly one day. And I don't know. Anyway, that is pretty much all that I have right now. That is the list that I compiled. Of course, I likely did miss some. If there are any of these three that you know about that you want everybody else to know about, then be sure to leave them in the comments below. Once again, if you do want to support the channel, go ahead and check out the Patreon at patreon.com/dinoguy, or you can just follow the link below. Once again, thank you all so much for your support. But yeah, that is pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day. Next time, we will be looking at the many interpretations of one of my favorite extinct animals, the massive rhino relative Paraceratherium. Be sure to tune in to that.